What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor South Africa Season 9 Return of the Outcasts. This week we're talking about week 3, which is episodes 9 through 12. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and the very last thing that we see of episode 12 is everyone going to the merge. Well, everyone who's left going to the merge. And so I feel like they definitely spent a lot of this week setting up the merge episodes. Everyone was thinking about the merge and who they wanted to get out before the merge. I feel like I heard the word merge so much that it didn't sound like a word anymore. So, yeah.
And we're officially halfway through this Survivor SA season. There are 6 weeks. So now that we're finished week 3, 24 total episodes, finished 12 episodes, we are officially halfway through, which is insane because there are 4 episodes aired a week.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy just because we've gotten so many episodes because there are 4 episodes aired a week, but there's still so many left too.
Yes, seriously. So we start off episode 9 where we see Tajan telling Tony about this idol, the outpost idol. So last week we saw Dante find one outpost idol at his camp, and then Tajan has this other outpost idol. And the twist is it's not an idol for your beach, but you have to give it to someone on the other opposing team. So I thought Tajan telling Tony about this idol clue about the idol was an interesting choice. I didn't know that they were that close to be sharing idol clues together, which is sort of a theme. I think we saw a lot of relationship building this week's episode and this cluster of 4 where I was like, "Oh, I didn't know these people were close."
Yeah, I feel like Tajan definitely got more of a spotlight in this week, but I was kind of confused about why. So, yeah, I like you, a lot of relationship building, but I'm still kind of confused about who is everyone's number one. So, that's going to be fun.
So I wrote in my notes, I wanted to see this fake idol exchange like we talked about last week in Survivor Australia, where they had a similar idol where you had to give it to someone on the other beach in order to maybe trade idols or to activate your idol kind of thing. I wanted to see a fake idol trade here where someone would give another person a fake idol. We didn't see it happen, so I was utterly disappointed. In
Me
episode 10,
too.
in episode 10, jumping a little bit forward, we see that Tajan does find the idol. So he didn't find it episode 9 after telling Tony about it. And then Tony says, let's not give this idol to Dante, which I thought was funny. And they decide that, hey, let's give Dino this idol, which similar to, oh, Tony and Tajan are really close now. I would love to hear more reasoning of why they wanted to give the idol to Dino over other people, over Phil even. So, like, why Dino?
Yeah, that was a very interesting choice, especially because I feel like you could argue that they did it to screw Dino over because Tony gave Dino the idol in like the least subtle way possible. And so it's kind of like everyone knew that Dino had it. So were they trying to paint a target on his back?
Yeah, like I guess maybe it's like pre-season alliance building. Tony and Dino talked, and so that's why Tony seemingly trusts Dino a lot and wants to give him the idol over Phil. I can understand why Tony wouldn't want to give the idol to any of the Breakfast Club alliance people, considering what happened pre-tribe swap. So it makes sense that maybe she would be giving it to the 2 people on the outs, the 2 pre-merge people on that team. But still, why Dino over Phil? Would love to hear more reasoning about that. Was it because they had a pre show alliance? You know, they were speaking before the show, so that's why that relationship is there.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like sometimes if it's like pre-show stuff, they don't really like to tell us about it because I feel like sometimes Survivor likes to pretend that like pre-show alliances don't exist at all. And like Survivor US kind of talked about it with the Poker Alliance in Winners at War. But like I wish that they would tell us more about like who knows who beforehand, what their like relationships were. Just because we got some of that in like the first episode, like Steffi saying that she knew Chappies, and we got some explanation of who was on seasons with whom. But yeah, this one seemed random.
Yeah. So I thought it was funny though that they didn't even consider doing a trade. Dante gives me their idol and we give Dante this idol because Tasia and Dante both went to the outpost together, but they were like, heck no, let's give it to someone that we want to forge a connection with, that we want to potentially work with, come to a merge situation. And then I thought maybe Dante would give Felix the idol after like Tasia never came back to him. Hey, I found this idol, anything like that. But then in episode 11, it said that Dante's idol expired. So I don't know. It was sort of weird. I was like, why did his idol expire so soon? Because I thought it expired come merge. So why couldn't Dante give it to Felix?
Honestly, keeping track of everyone's advantages started to feel like a chore. And like I'm glad that things expired because we don't like advantage get-ins, but I feel like the end of episode 12 kind of became an advantage get-in anyway. And I also thought it was funny because instead of saying advantages, they would say pouches because each of the advantages, I guess, came in a pouch. And so it's like, we know that everyone has something, but we're not sure what everyone has. We just know they have a pouch. So
I thought Dino would make some more like package jokes.
yeah.
But like you just mentioned, Tony gave Dino this idol and did it really bad. I was surprised though. I was like, oh, how did so many people see it happen, you know?
I feel like it's one of those things where, like, if they were about ready to go and they had to, like, wait for Tony and Dino to go back to their respective sides, it's kind of like, come on, we're waiting on you. You have to get in the car, kid. So.
Yeah, which sort of caused a little bit of a hot mess of issues that we see play out in the next few episodes. I was just surprised how many people could have seen it, just very obvious like that. You would also think, oh, everyone's hugging, nobody would really notice, but everyone saw through it pretty much. Paulessa, we see then saying, oh, I want to vote Dino out, which then she also goes back on later on in this cluster of episodes. And then we also see Tony telling Steffi that she gave Dino the idol too. And so I was like, oh, didn't know that they were super close now, which I think might be a theme going into the merge where Tony thinks that she has Steffi, but Steffi's actually with the Breakfast Club group.
Yeah, because I feel like Steffi and Tony were kind of at odds, and I feel like Steffi and Tony are only close now because Steffi doesn't really have anyone else on, or didn't really have anyone else on her current tribe, but now that they're merged, it's like it doesn't make sense for her not to go back to Marion and Meryl. So I think Tony is not long for this world now that the merge has come.
Which seems like it will be a theme coming up because even in episode 12, we see Tony saying to everyone, hey, yeah, you know, I have Steffi, I've got Killarney, I have all these people. These are the numbers that we have, counting all the votes, which turns out might not actually be the case because it does seem like Steffi was able to pull Killarney, and then Steffi and Killarney will go to the Breakfast Club group.
Yeah, so it seems like Tony maybe doesn't have the social awareness to realize that she is not as high up as she thinks she is.
So we go to the immunity challenge of episode 9. It's a blindfold challenge, and then you do a word puzzle at the end, and then the winning team gets to go to the Fresh Stop Survivor shop. And so this was a better version of a blindfold challenge, I think, because usually in Survivor, you have blindfold challenges where there are big blocks where people get hurt, people could get crushed, people could get very injured. And so those blindfold challenges are not that fun to watch because you're always scared for the person that might fall on something or get crushed by something. So this was a better version of a blindfold challenge because there's less room for getting injured.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting though because since they're in closer quarters, kind of like I guess the reason that the team that lost is because while the puzzle doer was doing the puzzle, his team started shouting so the other team couldn't find the puzzle pieces. I just thought it was interesting that they all referred to that as like playing dirty when it's like it's the rules of the game, my dudes.
Yeah, Red starts screaming once Dino gets to the puzzle part and they could take off all their blindfolds, where Dino was a caller and then Teresa was a caller. And I guess, it's smart to be causing a ruckus, talking so loud that the blue team couldn't hear their caller, they couldn't hear Teresa, giving them the instructions, which really, really slowed them down because you need to get all those pieces before you can take your blindfolds off and then the caller can go and do the puzzle. So it makes sense, all's fair in love and war. So it does make sense that you would want to slow down the other team. We see Dino messing with them too by like calling Tony over and pretending to be someone else. But I can see, like, if you're Teresa, if you're the losing team, it's got to be so annoying and so frustrating that you're like, everyone, please just shut up because I want to do this challenge and I can't hear and I can't think because all of you are yelling. So I can totally see how they were frustrated about it.
Yeah, I can see how they're frustrated, but I also feel like the game's the game. It's it's a strategy I don't think we've seen before, but it's a strategy that works. So
Yeah, it's definitely like within the rules of the game versus like last week we saw being too physical in a challenge also didn't get someone DQ'd in the challenge.
yeah, so I feel like if being too physical wouldn't DQ you, doing something like this also wouldn't.
So this was another hero puzzle. It was Dino versus Teresa on the puzzle. You can't really fault Teresa for losing at the puzzle because they were already so far behind because of all the yelling. So red team wins, which is Dino's team. Blue team, Teresa's team, loses. Dino had a big head start, so you can't really be like, oh, Teresa lost this puzzle for us. Let's vote her out.
Yeah. I feel like episode 9 seems like so long ago after also watching 10, 11, and 12. So that's fun. But I feel like the strategy behind voting out who got voted out in episode 9 was kind of beyond me because it seemed like they were talking about the merge, but I also don't understand why voting out Killarney, which was one of the proposed vote outs, was like an object for the merge.
So yeah, I guess pre-tribal council, we at the end of the challenge, we see Dante or Dino thanking Dante, like, thanks for, not throwing this challenge. Thanks for, going along with me and listening to my instructions. And I thought, like, wow, that's actually really interesting that, Dino even thought, hey, Dante doesn't like me. Maybe he's going to throw this challenge. So I thought it was really interesting that we saw that and it had like the little captions of their whispers on the screen. Like, oh, Dante could have easily thrown this challenge, just stood there, maybe walked off in the wrong direction, pretended like he couldn't hear Dino calling to throw it to try to vote Dino out come merge before the merge because Dino and Dante have this little rift happening, especially after last episode where we saw the Phil, Shona, Dino plan fall through. So I thought it was really interesting that Dante could have thrown this challenge. Dino realized someone like Dante could have thrown it, and then he's thanking Dante for not potentially throwing the challenge.
Yeah, I just thought that was weird because throwing a challenge is rarely good for anyone. Like I feel like a lot of times throwing a challenge like doesn't end up the way people think that it's going to. And so thanking Dante for not doing something that would be against his best interest is kind of like, okay, Dino.
It could have caused Dante to get voted out because he saw how close those votes were. So it would have maybe been bad for Dante to also throw this challenge, even if Dante wants to vote Dino out super badly, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we go to the Fresh Stop Survivors shop. So because Red Team wins, those people get to go and they have to go in one at a time. They choose the order, and usually there's probably going to be an advantage hidden within all of the food. I love these kinds of rewards that they get. Australian Survivor, I think, does this reward the best. There are so many amazing moments from Australian Survivor where they have this reward And like people literally go in, they're dumping all of the food out. There was a cake one where they would like go and they like dug into every single cake looking for an advantage. Like the whole room, after even the first person goes in, the food is all trashed because they're like looking through it, dumping everything onto the floor. So I thought Meryl going in first, she was very tame in searching.
Meryl going first, I feel like she was very strategic in searching because she didn't want to make it obvious where she found it if she did find it. And I think she played it off really well because the advantage was hidden in the cake, and she played it off really well, being like, at the last minute, I just shoved as much cake into my face as I could. Because I feel like if it looks like someone's torn through everything, then you know that the first person likely has an advantage. But like a lot of other people like wasted time looking for an advantage where they could have been eating. And so I feel like Meryl did a good job by not like projecting that she had been looking for an advantage and not projecting where she might have found it.
Yeah, I think just it's such fun TV when you see them ripping through all of the food items. I think here for Survivor SA, they made the advantage too easy to find. Like obviously it's going to be in the cake that has the emblem on it. So I think they should have had, more cakes with emblems on them. So it's like, okay, you have to purposely dig through each one and then it looks obvious, like, oh, why is there a big hole missing from every single one? Or hit it in a different spot, because the one cake that has the tribal marking on it, like obviously something is probably going to be hidden there. So I think SA should take something from Australian Survivors book here and maybe copy more of their food reward challenge like this, because this was too easy to find.
Yeah. I feel like in general, when you're the first person, you're going to find it though, because there's not that many places that it can hide. So
Yeah, so I want to see people digging through all of the food items, making a big mess while also stuffing their face as fast as they can to get all of the sweets or all of the goodies. So Meryl finds the advantage, and it is a tribal council pass. So I think a few weeks ago when we were talking about diplomatic immunity, I said, oh, it's like Jeremy's advantage. But actually, this tribal council pass is more like Jeremy's advantage, where Meryl would be able to send herself or someone else home from tribal council that they can't vote at that tribal, they can't get voted out, and she can use it until final 6.
I feel like that advantage was kind of OP, but go off, I guess.
So the Three Girls Alliance, the full package alliance, is OP. Marion has the diplomatic immunity, Meryl has the tribal council pass, and Steffi has a regular hidden immunity idol that doesn't expire until the regular time. So they are OP together.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where everyone in the alliance brought something to the table, so they really are the full package, as they say.
Seriously. So before tribal council, we are hearing all of these different plans. Felix and Teresa want to vote Killarney out. Steffi says, let's split the vote, 4 on Pinety, 3 on Killarney, where this is where the intrigue is, where Tony and Tajan are sort of these swing votes here. Do they go with Steffi and Bless you. Do they go with
Sorry.
Steffi and Killarney to make a Tony, Tajan, Steffi, Killarney foursome, or do they go with Teresa and Felix and Pinety to make a Teresa, Felix, Pinety, Tajan, Tony 5-person alliance? So they are the swing votes in this situation.
Yeah, and that was kind of fun. It was funky fresh. I think both sides kind of had something to offer to Tijan and Tony, so it's kind of like it wasn't obvious who they were gonna pick.
I feel like for me personally, I would think Tony and Tajan made the wrong move because they choose to go with Steffi and Killarney as a foursome. Tony and Tajan were on the bottom of their original tribe, where the Breakfast Club group were basically running things, voting PK out, voting, I guess, turning on their own, voting Chappies out. And so by now working with Steffi, and I think this is the start of this theme that we're seeing throughout this week, where maybe Tony is blinded by this new friendship, new alliance ship with Steffi, not realizing that Steffi was very like integrated into the main alliance that was built on the first tribe that they were on together. I really think that they would need to vote Steffi out. You need to weaken this Breakfast Club group, but people aren't seeing that group. They aren't realizing it. And I think Tony and Tajan are going to be on the bottom again come merge, because they left like Steffi in the game when they could have maybe voted her out, but Steffi has advantages. But I think they should have worked with the Pinty, Teresa, and Felix group.
I think it's hard to say, because I feel like voting Pinty out is in itself not a bad choice, just because it seemed like Pinty was annoying a lot of people still. And I feel like that was kind of a running theme throughout the other 2 weeks as well, where Pinty was just a really difficult person to get along with. And so I wonder if their choice would have been different if it wasn't Pinty that was on the chopping block for the other side.
Yeah, or even voting Pinty out and then potentially flipping to work with Teresa and Teresa and Felix the second vote, instead of voting out Teresa. Maybe you flip again and then you try to vote out Steffi in that place. But it does seem like, oh, they're trying to keep Steffi in because they think they have this new relationship with her. I think Pinty, though, had the right read that Steffi will link back up with those people from her original team. So I thought she had the right read there. Pinty says, let's do a 3-2-2 split vote. And yeah, I agreed with Pinty. I think she had the right read that Steffi's going to flip back with her original teammates come merge.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of inevitable. There wasn't really winning here, I think, for Pinty, because even if she stuck with Steffi and
I guess Teresa and Felix, not Steffi.
Yeah, I don't know why I said Steffi. Even if she stuck with like Felix and Teresa, it's like staying with Felix and Teresa would be a bad choice, but so would flipping to the other side. So
I guess for Tony and Tajan, because you said Pinty. Okay.
I don't know what I'm saying. Like I had a thought, and in between my brain and my mouth, it just evaporated. So
a word vomit. Teresa doesn't want to vote Steffi out. That was Pinty's inclination for the vote, and she says no, we should vote Killarney out because Killarney will never work with us. And I thought this was interesting. We hear Teresa say that she wants to be the remaining person who, quote, isn't considered, shouldn't be here, doesn't deserve to be here, kind of thing. And she's saying, oh, if you're considered a goat, you're brought further. And even if you don't deserve to be here, people won't give you the win. And so she wants to be thought of in that, let me bring her. And so if you're the only person of sort of that goat stature, of the follower stature, they would bring you further. So I thought that was interesting, because we haven't really heard that before, of oh, Teresa wants to vote Killarney because she wants to fill that position of, this is a pre-merge person who maybe shouldn't have been called back for this cast.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though, because Teresa, I feel like, wasn't really seen like that, because people ultimately voted her out, spoiler, the next episode, because she was seen as kind of a strategic threat. So I wonder if that was a flawed premise to begin with.
I think it'd be interesting to learn more from the players. Is there this kind of hierarchy within returnee seasons of, okay, people that deserve to be called back and people that don't, quote, deserve to be called back? Similar to in Game Changers, where a lot of fans were saying, oh, some people should be here and some people, heck no, they should have not been invited back for this Game Changers season. I wonder, not as a viewer, but actually if you're on the cast, are they sort of looking at each other thinking, hey, this person shouldn't have been here. Why isn't XYZ person here? And sort of thinking, they don't deserve to be here. Let's vote them out.
I do wonder that, but I also feel like that is really personal, kind of, and dependent on what you consider a good game of Survivor to be. Because I feel like it's one of those things where if you're a really polarizing character like Chappie's, some people might say oh no, he was a jerk, he never did anything, he shouldn't have been called back. And some people might be oh, he was such great TV, he carried his tribe, definitely should have come back. So I feel like what makes a good Survivor player is really subjective, and unless you win, basically, and none of them have won, it's kind of all up in the air.
And it's just sort of dumb if you're going to like not work with someone or ostracize someone just because they, maybe didn't make it far in the game or they quote don't deserve to be there kind of thing. It's like everyone's on the cast, everyone has one vote. So sort of alienating someone because you don't think they deserve to be there is maybe not the best because everyone's vote is equal. So we go to tribal council, and I guess this editing was a little bit weird because usually we get like a fake out vote, but it seemed like this episode was very straightforward. Okay, Pinty is probably the one going home today.
Yeah, it seemed like a pretty straightforward vote. And I think maybe that's just because they knew that votes were going to get more complicated later on in the week. And so it's like, don't make too much intrigue if it doesn't need to be. So
yeah, one of the first straightforward votes of the season because a lot of the votes we've seen have had that intrigue, have had it be a blindside or maybe a fake out vote, potentially advantages being played. So this one felt very, very digestible, easy. Okay, XYZ. And we see Tajan looking around the voting booth for idols. Maybe we'll see someone find the Shona or Seamus hidden idol. And then Pinty, when the votes are read, looks around and is like, who voted for me?
yeah, I felt bad for Pinty because she genuinely did seem blindsided. But I also felt bad for Felix because she was like, did you vote for me? And was like, I don't know what's going on, dude.
I wrote in my notes, Teresa and Felix are in trouble now. Pre-mergers are getting picked off. Like we said at the end of last week when 3 pre-mergers went home. Not good for Teresa and Felix going into the next episode, which then we see play out. So episode 10, we start with the immunity challenge. They have to chop through a rope to get a wrecking ball, push through an obstacle course, and then smash the targets, where the reward you win pizza and beer.
I was really worried that like someone was gonna get rolled over with those wrecking balls just because like whenever there is like large objects, like Survivor US also does like challenges where they have to move around big blocks. I'm always like, they are one wrong move from like crushing a finger, breaking a toe. Like, I was stressed.
Red team sits out Marion, and then we see Marion looking for advantages on the sit out bench, which I thought was great. She was hardcore looking too, like literally on the ground looking under, not just playful looking, let me just tuck my hand under, but seriously hardcore looking, which is probably helped because the sit out bench was like far away from the people competing, so she could like get down and actually search the bench thoroughly.
Yeah, that was fun.
I like this challenge though. It was a really close challenge. I thought the wrecking ball part at the end was really cool because it requires teamwork for the pulling of the ball, and then you have teamwork with dropping the ball to hit the targets, and it's so tiring because like the ball is heavy. So I like the end part of this challenge.
Yeah, it was an interesting challenge. I think it was a little bit better than like the comparable challenge from US Survivor where they have to build things with the blocks.
So it sends red team as the winners. We never even saw them eat the pizza and drink the beer. So that sucks. So that sends blue team, which is the Teresa team, back to tribal council again. Anything on pizza and beer, Alyssa?
No, it was just pizza and beer.
So we see Tajan, Steffi, Tony, and Killarney seemingly going to stick together as a foursome. I thought potentially, hey, maybe Tony and Tajan flip back and work with Felix and Teresa, which we sort of potentially see happen where Tajan is thinking, hey, I maybe don't want to do this. Tajan thinks Dante gave Felix the idol, so they're saying, okay, maybe let's split the votes 2-2-2 between Felix and Teresa, and then the other two would be whoever Felix and Teresa vote for. Very risky, as we see later in the episode, where it just causes one person to flip to mess up all the votes, where we see Tajan talking with Teresa and Felix about their connections to Dino and Phil. So that's why I thought, okay, maybe Tajan and Tony would flip back and work with Teresa and Felix because they recognize their connections to the other pre-merge people. They're needing to gather numbers before this war with the Breakfast Club group. So I thought maybe they would flip to keep Teresa and Felix because of their connections with the other pre-merge people.
Yeah. I mean, everything you said is spot on. I don't have anything to add to it. It just this whole situation just made me sad because I really liked both Felix and Teresa, and so like having to give up one of them was always going to make me sad.
A lose-lose. So we see Tajan doesn't want a loyal goat in Killarney, but he wants someone that he can strategize with, where he says Teresa fits that bill, which I thought was really interesting because I feel like a lot of times in Survivor, we see maybe one and two good strategists like Adam and Wendell. They want to fill their team, fill their alliance with a bunch of followers, with a bunch of, potential goats at the end. So it's interesting to hear Tajan say in confessional and when talking, like, yeah, I'd rather surround myself with a strategist like Teresa rather than someone who's super, super loyal like Killarney, but doesn't input anything into the conversation.
Yep. Basically that. You need to stop just taking all my thoughts because it makes me sound stupid.
We also see Tony say that would you prefer a goat with loyalty at the moment over the person who might not necessarily be loyal in the long run? So it seems like Tony is more on the side of keeping Killarney around, which then I think in the future we'll see will also be part of her downfall because Steffi was able to swoop in and potentially steal Killarney, their loyal goats away from them.
Yeah. So sucks if you keep someone for being loyal and they're not actually that loyal, so
Oh my gosh, imagine. Yeah, that really sucks. You keep the loyal person around, but someone steals them out from under you. And so we see them wanting to split the votes, like I said, 2-2-2, where the 2 votes on Felix would be Tony and Steffi. The 2 votes on Teresa would be Tajan and Killarney. And it seems like Tajan is apprehensive about the vote, not wanting to vote Teresa out, where Tony sees that. So I was thinking, oh, are they splitting the votes incorrect? Because typically you wouldn't want to put the person who is maybe wishy-washy on the name that's actually going home. But here it doesn't really matter because it's a 2-2-2. Any person could flip, doesn't really, it might not be Tajan who flips on the vote, but more so if it's like a 4-3 split, you don't want to put the wishy-washy person on the 4 split vote. You would prefer to put them on a different person as the backup because if the wishy-washy person is on the majority vote, they could easily switch and then mess up your split vote. So here it doesn't matter because it's 2-2-2, but I think for future things, you would have to think of, okay, who is more in on the plan, you put them on the majority versus the wishy-washy person, you stick them on the backup.
I think that's hard though because sometimes it's like it doesn't matter whether the person's on the wishy-washy or the backup. Like look at the vote that Phil ruined by like chickening out because it's like it wouldn't have mattered which name he was supposed to be on because he totally chickened out. So
yeah, if everyone's not in on the plan 100%, then doing a split vote wouldn't really work, as we see with like these close votes where it's like one vote difference. But if it's, like a 5-4-2, then, someone could flip more easily kind of thing. But yeah, I guess for future, we'll see how they split votes. I just thought that was interesting that Tajan was put onto the Teresa vote, even though Tony saw that Tajan was apprehensive about voting Teresa, which just leads to the potential of someone flipping more easily. And I thought it was really interesting. Teresa says she might vote for Felix. And I was like, wow, I did not even consider Felix and Teresa flipping on one another.
yeah, I think it's like it's obvious that it's an option, and I think it's good that they like address that it was an option just because they would seem kind of stupid if they didn't consider like flipping in a 2-2-2 vote to make it a 3-2-1 vote. But I'm glad that ultimately they didn't flip on each other just because it's like friendship is magic or something.
I didn't even consider it. I was like, maybe I'm too nice. I was like, it's obviously going to be a 2-2-2. Tajan is the one that needs to flip to save Teresa and Felix. But yeah, it's sort of like, survival of the fittest. If Teresa did flip, she would save herself, but at what cost? Because like we've seen in the past last week's episode, okay, these people are pulling these Hail Mary moves because they realize they're on the bottom. They tried to pull off an epic move like Sheamus wanting to blindside Dino versus Seamus trying to go for a Killarney or Shona. It makes more sense if you are on the outs potentially going home to try to pull that big move so you can get allies moving forward rather than, oh, let me flip on the only person who's voting with me, vote them out, and then you have no one going with you going forward just to save yourself for 3 more days.
Exactly.
So allies are important, like you said. It sort of sucks, you know, that it's just down to voting your person out over you going home. But at the end of the day, Teresa does not flip her vote, and it ends up being a 2-2-2 split the first vote. And then they have to vote a second time where Tajan, Steffi, and Killarney are the only people voting. So then it was obvious they're probably going to write Teresa down on this second vote.
Yeah. And then we say goodbye to Teresa.
So sad. So I guess hindsight, technically, she should have flipped and voted Felix out. But it's hard though, because if Felix and Teresa truly believed that Tajan was going to flip with them, if Teresa flipped her vote and voted for Felix to go home, then she would have been the fill in this situation and messed up the vote and voted her own ally Felix out. So it's really hard. If they did believe Tajan was going to flip, you would have to vote Killarney in that situation to even have that vote work.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the downfall is sort of the mismanagement of Killarney, making Killarney flip on this tribe swapped tribe, because if you're just looking at numbers based off of the original tribes, Teresa, Felix, Pinty, and Killarney should have been fine because it was a 4-3 going into this swap tribe together. It seems like because based off of the edit, Teresa and Felix burnt some bridge with Killarney. They couldn't work together. Killarney didn't want to work with them. They didn't want to work with Killarney. That Killarney flipped on them. So I don't know, something there. They should have had Killarney wanting to work with them more, not have burnt that bridge, or maybe voting Killarney out instead of voting Seamus or Tevin out last week, because it seemed like Teresa was fine with them, and then Seamus and Tevin would maybe go into a tribe swap saying, let's stick tribes strong, rather than Killarney flipping on them. But that's hindsight 2020. You could flip so many things going into a tribe swap. It would change so many outcomes.
Yeah, time to write your Survivor fan fiction, Rachel.
Yeah, go back in time. So we go to episode 11. There are 12 people left on the season. We see Felix. He is very mad because Teresa got voted out and he wants to get some revenge. So I was like, okay, let's go. Let's see it.
I love revenge stories. So, yeah.
Dino going into the next challenge is really bummed out that Teresa is gone. They played on the same season together, seemingly also had a pre-show alliance together. And I just thought it's got to be so sad to go into the challenges and Nico is saying, come on over. And then you see your BFF get voted out on the opposite side. I'm like, dang, that's got to suck.
Yeah. Especially because there's nothing that you could have done to prevent it.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, I have to watch it on TV to learn what happens or talk to them after the show. It's like you hope that your buddy is fine on the other side, and then to see them not actually be fine is gotta suck.
Yeah.
So we see Dante start having this fake idol plan, which we see in episodes 11 and 12. He's telling Meryl, go tell Dino about the idol and see if Dino scrambles. Then it means that Dino doesn't have an idol. And I feel like another theme that we're seeing throughout this cluster of episodes is that people in the Breakfast Club Alliance are starting to get annoyed with Dante. We see Meryl being annoyed with Dante, Shane being annoyed with Dante. Could be bad for Dante going forward. So I just thought that was interesting how we've had all of this potentially anti-Dante rhetoric coming from his own alliance.
Yeah, I feel like no one really likes Dante. Like I don't think anyone in his alliance is like Dante is my number one, and obviously outside of his alliance, people think that he's kind of schemy. So
we get to the immunity challenge and you have to balance on a pole and then you have to hold this ball above your head. The last person standing wins tribal immunity for their team, but Nico says in a twist, both tribes get to go to tribal council. Everyone casts a vote for one member of the losing tribe. So I felt like this is sort of very, very similar to the fake merge hourglass twist of US Survivor. In Survivor SA, it's similar. One group is safe, one group is not, but everyone votes and you have to vote for someone in the not safe group. Very similar to US Survivor fake merge, but without the horrendous hourglass twist.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting twist, but it also kind of confused me with the whole outpost thing, like voting. I'm too dumb. That's all.
So the last person standing from each team gets to go to the outpost. I thought potentially maybe a little bit unfair because everyone got to compete. So even though the red team had more people, it was harder for blue to win because they started with like 2 less people. Even like maybe 2 people should have had to sit out to make the numbers even, but it didn't really matter because it ended up 4v4 at the end because the red people cared less and then they just jumped off to go chat on the sit out bench together. So I guess it doesn't really matter, but it does, it's harder for blue to win because there are less people.
Yeah. Sucks to be blue, I guess.
So red is sort of bad. Everyone is dropping. And I think it was a bad move for all of the Breakfast Club people on Team Red to drop so early and let Dino and Phil be the last 2 people standing, because that's just basically putting your fate in the 2 people that you want to vote out of your team. Someone there should have pushed through it and tried to beat Dino or Phil out in order to keep your alliance together, in order for one of the Breakfast Club people to go to the outpost. Why are you going to let Dino and Phil get an easy ticket to go get an advantage at the outpost? It seems like sort of bad strategy where someone on the Breakfast Club group on Red should have tried to push through so they could beat Dino or Phil out if they really cared about Dino or Phil staying longer.
Yeah, it just seemed like they didn't care. So, or maybe they didn't care enough to put in the extra energy that they would have needed. So,
yeah, which is sort of weird because you're going to let the 2 people you want to vote out carry all the burden for this challenge. And so maybe they don't care because it's like, hey, Dino and Phil win the challenge for us as a team and we don't go to tribal council, or Dino and Phil go and get some advantage, but then they could both potentially be safe. Because last episode, everyone knows Dino has something. Why are you going to let Dino and Phil be the last 2 people standing here when Nico said they're going to the outpost? You're going to think Phil or whoever's going is going to get something good. Everyone, maybe they just couldn't also stand up there and the challenge was difficult, that Dino and Phil were actually the best people there and they did outlast everyone. But if you are Breakfast Club, I feel like you should have tried to power through to beat Dino and Phil out here.
yeah, but I guess what happened.
So we see Felix drop early, and then Dante drops, just looked like he didn't care and wanted to go sit and chat with Felix, which was really smart. Because it's like, oh, my buddy's out. Let me go and sit on the bench with him. Felix spills the tea. Dante spills the tea. And it was interesting to see for Felix now, where will Felix go? We don't really get an answer to that. These 2 episodes come merge, I think we will get the answer to it. Will Felix go with his season 7 connection with Dante and Meryl, or will he go with his season 9 connection this season with the no BS alliance with Phil and Dino? Because right now they are definitely at odds with one another. So I think seeing where Felix goes will be very interesting.
Yeah, and I feel like it's good that Felix at least has like something going on, since his alliance with Teresa fell apart, sadly. So, yeah, it will be interesting, as you say. And I think you won't really know until after the first immunity challenge. So,
and honestly, I think he'll go with Dante and Meryl potentially because they have the numbers. It seems like Phil and Dino are going to be on the outs come merge.
yeah.
But we'll see next week for that. Dino drops to let Phil be the winner for their team, and so Phil gets to go to the outpost. I thought it was really interesting to hear all of the strategy chats for the people left in the challenge still, all of them standing on the polls, where Phil then drops, and then so the other team is going to win immunity, but then the other team still had 3 people, Steffi, Tasia, and Tony still up there, where Steffi and Tasia basically drop because they say, hey, I've been to Outpost before. Let's let Tony have it. She hasn't been there yet, which I thought was really smart on Tony's end to basically barter with Dino and Phil to get them to drop and to get Phil to be the one going to Outpost, because Tony knows that she's good with Dino already. Tony already gave him that idol. Hey, let's have Phil go so I can become good with Phil. And she basically gets to go to Outpost without anyone on her team being mad at her, because Tasia and Steffi already went. So if Steffi or Tasia put up a fight and were like, no, Tony, we don't want you to go, it would have looked bad on their end because they already had that opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
So Blue wins immunity. So the safe people are Steffi, Tasia, Tony, Killarney, Felix. The not safe people are Dante, Shane, Palessa, Meryl, Phil, Dino. Marion here, she uses her diplomatic immunity advantage. So she goes from not safe, losing team, to safe, winning team. And I was like, oh, I thought she had to use it at Tribal Council. So when she picked it up and used it right in the end of this challenge, I was like, oh, what is happening?
Yeah. You're just saying everything that I want to say, so it's fine. We're fine.
So Marion goes to the Blue Tribe. She has no chance of being voted out here, which was fine. I thought might as well use this advantage before it expires. This was the last time she could use it anyway. So it basically ensures her safety. She won't get voted out this week, and she can still cast the vote at Tribal Council. So it's not like, oh, she's ditching her Breakfast Club people. It doesn't really matter. She saved herself and she can still cast the vote. So it's not like she's hurting the people she left.
Yeah, and then also if they know that the merge is about to come, she also doesn't have to worry about the next week. So that's good.
Steffi, we see she didn't really like Marion coming over, though. There was a little bit of tension there, and the entire new Blue team was giving her the cold shoulder at camp. It was sort of awkward for Marion going in, and nobody really wanted to give her much information before the merge. So people were sort of like icing her out going in.
Yeah, I felt bad for her about that, but also like I kind of get it just because like when someone flips like that, it's like you don't know why they're flipping. Like maybe Marion like flipped to the other side because she was worried about going home, or maybe she did it in as a strategy to learn more about the other side before going into the merge to help her old team. So
yeah, Felix and Killarney probably mad confused because they're like, oh, the post merge people, why are they not being nice to Marion, not welcoming her in with open arms? Well, Steffi is like talking with her, like what is up with that? So it's probably really good for like Felix and Killarney to sort of gather more intel from, oh, what's happening on the post merge tribe pre-swap. Why are they not like including Marion? Was there tension there? Was there drama there? So it's probably really good to get intel from her right before the merge. And it's also good for Marion to get info from Steffi about what's happened at their post-swap tribe. So Marion can bring that to merge too.
mm-hmm.
So we go to the outpost, and this twist, they have to predict who is going home. And if they do predict who goes home, they get a half of an idol, which I thought was an interesting advantage. And I really thought it was interesting because in this cluster of episodes, we really see Tony go from the bottom to the top, it seemed. She was in the bottom of the like post-merge tribe at the start, where the Breakfast Club group was voting out PK. Her other Tattoo Alliance member got voted out. And now it seems like, oh, she's at the top again. She has all of these numbers, but actually she maybe doesn't really have all of these numbers. So it's like up, down for Tony.
Yeah, and I feel like the person who they decided to like try to get out, I didn't understand that. Because they were like, let's try and vote out Shane and we'll each get half an idol. And I'm like, no one has shown any desire to vote Shane out thus far. Like, I feel like you could have easily like picked like your second choice from last week instead of trying to come up with a whole new target and like convince a bunch of people to vote Shane out. Like, what the hell?
I guess it's interesting. It depends, I guess, if they think that Dante has the idol at that point in time, or if they don't. But it seems like they didn't know that Dante has an idol potentially, because at first they wanted to split the votes between Shane and Dante, and then they change it to Meryl and Shane because they want to keep Dante around, but they want to, cut his numbers down. So, yeah, I guess it's interesting. I feel like we have seen people say, oh, Shane is obnoxious, Shane is bossy. So maybe that's where Phil is coming from, because we see Phil talking with Shane and be like, I do not buy anything that Shane is saying. And we see Shane and Dino talk about, or we see Dino and Phil talk about Shane in that way. So maybe that's where Phil is getting that info of, hey, let's put it on Shane kind of thing. But yeah, no Shane name has come up prior to like this set of episodes.
Yeah, so like I get that people think that Shane is bossy, but it just seems like when you're voting someone out, especially when whether or not you get an idol is dependent on who you're voting out, I feel like you would want a little more momentum than that.
I guess you'd want to put it on an easy vote, right?
Yeah, and I feel like Shane wasn't as easy of a vote as they thought it was.
So Phil and Tony could work together. They probably should work together. They're probably bonded now because of this, even though, spoiler, next episode, they don't actually get an idol from this. But I thought it would have been interesting if they did get an idol. Do they betray one another later and don't give the half to the other person to use the idol? Or do they actually work together to use the idol as one whole idol?
Yeah, I like half idols just because I think they add another layer of strategy, but I thought it was kind of difficult because there was like two kind of gates to getting this idol, because first you had to guess correctly who was going home, and then you'd have to like join together to get the idol. I feel like it would have been more interesting if they each independently got to vote on who they thought was going to go home, and then that way there could kind of be two competing plans to see who would get the idol and who they wanted voted out.
It's sort of a weird twist in that way because it unnecessarily puts a target on Shane's back, where prior to the Idol Outpost twist, maybe Shane's name wouldn't have even come up if it were like a regular vote. But because they basically put a red bullseye on Shane's back and we're like, haha, we win something. If Shane goes home, now we have to vote him out. It's sort of weird in a way. It's like, I don't know. Is that fair?
I don't think so.
It's like you win something, I guess, by having your plan go through, but then you're incentivized to do that plan because you win something because of it. It's not just like, oh, let me vote this person out because it's better for my game, but let me vote this person out because I win something from it.
I mean, you could make the argument that they should have put down the name of the person who voting it out would be best for their game. So
yeah, that's true, I guess. Definitely.
It would have been even worse if it was like they picked a name out of the urn and then they had to like get that person voted out to get the idol or whatever.
Yeah, if they had to do a secret mission, production gave them a name and where they were like, ha, get this person out and you win something. Yeah, that'd be way worse.
Yeah, that would be, people would never rest because that would be blatant production interference.
So at the end of this episode, it's sort of a cliffhanger. It's a potential advantage get-in happening on Red, where Dino has a real idol, Dante has a fake idol, but he's bluffing, so that will probably get votes swayed away from being put on him because people are nervous. People think he's going to come back with something coming back from the outpost. So it's really only Shane, Alyssa, and Meryl who are up for elimination. But Meryl has the tribal council pass that's a secret, so technically she could be safe. And then the episode ends on Shane finding a red string in the woods.
Yeah. Spoopy.
So Shane finds diplomatic immunity, so it is the same advantage that Marion found on the original beach, but he can't play it because only one person could play it. So I thought that was good. Now we got the answer to, we thought it was a little weird that Oling Marion found the string and found diplomatic immunity, but it seems like, yes, it was hidden on both beaches at the start of the game, but I thought it was weird. Really? No one saw that string for 2 weeks that they're out there?
I thought it was kind of weird that only one person was allowed to use diplomatic immunity. Because wouldn't you want two people to use it so that the tribes didn't end up skewed because of diplomatic immunity?
Well, I guess so. Say it was like a tribe of 5 and 7, flipping. If the 7 went to the 5, it'd be 6-6. So I guess you can't really, counteract because one team could just lose a lot and they would
That's
have a lot less people. But I think it would be interesting if they did allow two people to flip. So like one person went to the other and then one person on the other team went to the other team. But like in this case, it would be bad because Shane and Marion could both flip off of the same team to a different tribe. So I think they would have to do it in a way that it was found pre-swap and those two swapped people aren't on the same tribe, because then you could have Shane and Marion both leaving, which would be bad. So I guess that's why they had that rule.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I feel like whenever Survivor has done something similar, it's been like something like a mutiny, where as many people as who wanted to leave could leave.
Which would have been interesting to see. Everyone would just switch off because it's going to be advantage get in. Shane is saying, let me use this as a fake advantage, similar to Dante bluffing the fake advantage to try to get rid of votes off of him. And basically, Alyssa was the only person who has no bluff or advantage or real advantage. And people are recognizing that because everyone has something that they are bluffing to try to sway votes away from them. And like Phil said, SA is just giving out idols like sweets, like candy now.
I felt like it was so strange because week one we praised them for being like, oh, really measured about how many advantages they were giving out, and then by week 3 they were like, hold my beer. So
basically, you just have to get a pouch and then you could put a rock in it and then you could trick people, which is great, except, you don't find pouches growing, in the woods. So it's harder to fake having an idol because you need that pouch to try to legitimize what you have. So you have to find at least something real in order to fake a thing if it's expired.
or find a piece of twine and cut up your clothing to make a
To
pouch.
make a pouch, yeah. Except those pouches look fancy. They look like velvet. They would have to
That's
use
true.
like, you know, I guess less fancy pouches. So we see episode 12. Phil comes back from the outpost and is telling people the plan. Tony and Phil have the same lie, saying we have to vote the same way and then we get an extra vote. I thought their story was really confusing because Phil also says half of an immunity idol in his speech to the whole team. So I was like, well, he's sort of just giving people the tips of how to figure out what the real thing is here.
Yeah, I was really confused by their fake story, and what really happened, I feel like, was much simpler and also not that bad. Like, they could have literally just said, like, hey, vote Shane and I'll get an advantage.
Which I was surprised that Phil doesn't even tell Dino about that, because I thought, okay, Phil's telling the fake story to everyone. Yes, he pulls Dino aside and still doesn't even give him the real story. He gives him more info, but he doesn't tell Dino about the half idol, because I really think if Phil is telling people, at least his close alliance members, so if he told Dino and Palessa even, hey, I get an idol that we all can use and we're going to link back up with the Tony group come merge, maybe that could have swayed people to vote more their way.
Yeah, I feel like people didn't really have a vested interest in voting Shane. So then when it became evident that Palesa was the only person who wouldn't potentially have something keeping her safe, it was a lot easier just to vote Palesa. And I feel like people would have had to be more calculated with voting Shane if they knew there was something at stake, you know?
Yeah, especially for the Dino, Phil, Tony group, if they could get an advantage from it, maybe they're more self-interested to try to get an idol out of it. Or they're like, okay, better to have the idol with these people rather than another idol hidden in the game where I don't know where the idol is. So a sort of balancing act there. We see Steffi after Tony tells her the plan. She does not want to vote Shane out because of the Breakfast Club alliance. Steffi and Killarney are getting annoyed that Tony is telling them what to do. This episode is sort of setting up, I feel like, next week where Tony might be on the outs and Steffi has now pulled in Killarney instead of Killarney going with the Tony Tejan group. And then we also see Steffi and Marion. They also don't want to vote Meryl out. They don't want to vote Shane out. And they are saying, okay, maybe let's vote Phil instead.
Yeah, that was kind of a weird one. I couldn't really track their whole thought process with that, but they can do what they can do.
Basically, all the names are coming up, and then Marion suggests let's vote Palessa. Steffi says she doesn't want to see Palessa go, so a hot mess express. Dante says let's split between Dino and Phil. Meryl wants to vote out Palessa to weaken Dante, which I feel like is a little bit flawed here because for Meryl, she should just want to vote out Dante, even though they have this prior connection together. They've worked together before, because Meryl is using this rhetoric, oh, let's vote out Palessa to weaken Dante, but we see other people using that same rhetoric against her, where we see Phil and Tony talk at the Outpost saying, yeah, we're switching the vote instead of splitting it on Dante and Shane. Let's split it on Meryl and Shane in order to vote Meryl out to weaken Dante. So it's sort of the similar thing where you need to vote Dante out because if you're Meryl, people are going to say, let's vote Meryl out in order to weaken Dante. You don't want to be in that position.
Yeah. And I feel like Meryl was the one who was gunning really hard for Palesa, so that makes sense. It's all coming
I guess.
together.
Yeah, but also it's like you don't want to vote out the other side piece because now whenever they see Dante, they'll say, let's vote out Meryl to weaken Dante. You want Palessa there. So if people see Dante, they say, let's vote out Palessa to weaken Dante, not let's vote out Meryl to weaken Dante. So
Or
I feel like
they could vote out Dante to weaken Dante. Playing 4D chess right there.
you just got to go for the big one first. No need to vote out, their side pieces. Just go for the main one. But I think to summarize the plans, from my understanding, we see the Breakfast Club group. They are potentially wanting to vote Dino or Phil out. The Dino group wants to vote out Meryl or Shane. And then the backup vote would be Palessa.
Yeah, all of their plans were so complicated, and I kind of just sat and nodded until they got to Final Tribal, and it was just finally everyone was on Palesa.
Yeah, tribal council is interesting. There's a lot of whispers figuring out the votes. Very confusing, honestly, what was happening. I feel like it was bad for Nico to let everyone get up and talk. I think that ruined all of the plans. If you didn't allow everyone to talk, I think we could have seen more of a split vote where maybe we see someone else like a Meryl or Shane go home. Maybe Palessa doesn't go home in that situation because when they allowed everyone to get up and talk, it basically solidified Palessa going home because someone just said a name and everyone was on board because, oh, that's the easy way. We know she probably doesn't have anything. No one's going to give her anything to play. So let's just be done with it. There's nothing fancy here. Let's just vote her out. So I think allowing everyone to talk was bad.
I thought it was more interesting because Nico wouldn't let them vote until everyone was ready to vote. And I feel like it's one of those things where if you learn that, like, oh, Nico won't let us vote if I am just stubborn and say I'm not ready to vote, then you can maybe just wait people out and be like, I'm not going to vote until you all agree to vote my way. So
Filibuster.
Filibuster, exactly.
So I think they needed seatbelts. They shouldn't allow this live tribal council because I think it ruined the plan. I would love to know if the plan would have been someone else besides Palesa going into that tribal and if all of the talking switched to Palesa because it really just seemed groupthink was happening. Everyone folded. They had these other plans and then the easy name came up and they're like, okay, fine, let's do her. Let's not risk it with a potential idol play.
Yeah. Which I guess was kind of a boring way to end something that could have been really dramatic, but
I was excited for Tajian standing up and saying, no, I don't think this is a good plan. Why are we changing our plan at Tribal at this moment? Good for him to speak up and stand up for something that he wanted to rather than just like sitting there quietly.
Yeah, but I guess maybe the time to do that should have been before the plan was solidified,
I guess when everyone's whispering, but then it's like so hectic and so chaotic. I think that's what led to just let's pick the easy vote. Let's vote Palesa because it's like no, vote regular, but then everyone's saying no, vote Palesa. It's got to be so confusing.
Yeah, I think it's confusing, but I think it's one of those things where once everyone has like gotten through their confusion and decided on who they want, don't don't make another 30-minute thing because you're like, no, I don't like this plan.
So after the votes are cast, Dante shows his expired idol, Shane shows his stone in the pouch bag, and Palissa is voted out, which really sucks. She might have been going home if it was just a regular tribal, because it would have been 3-3 if it was Palessa, Phil, and Dino versus Shane, Meryl, and Dante. If Marion still switched teams here, so maybe Palessa would have gone home, but Phil could have easily gone home in that situation too if Palessa flipped and worked with the Breakfast Club group to vote out Dino or Phil. So I don't know, a little bit with this twist, I don't think Palissa would have gone home otherwise.
Yeah, which kind of sucks for her because she got twist screwed, but
Playing the middle too well to be no one's number one in this situation. You're the easy person to go home.
exactly.
So I'm really interested. I want to know why Dino didn't play the idol because it expired at this tribal council. You know, he could not play it because he thinks he's safe, so he doesn't want to ruffle any feathers. If you play an idol, you become a bigger target. So by keeping it, you hopefully are shielding yourself a little bit. Maybe he's afraid that Palissa is a little bit closer to Dante, so is fine with her going home here. But also, if he did play the idol for Palissa, I think we saw in the episode, so us as a viewer knows that Palessa put her stake with the Dino Phil group. Maybe Dino and Phil don't know that and think Palessa's maybe still playing the middle or could flip on them. So fine if she goes home. But for us as a viewer, we know Palessa was going to be loyal to them potentially. So I think keeping Palessa around could have been very, very valuable come merge because she wanted to work with Dino and Phil.
Yeah, but I feel like Dino and Phil were kind of Palesa, I feel like, has been playing the middle a lot. Like, she hasn't really staked a claim. So I feel like assuming that she was going to be loyal to them after the merge maybe isn't the best assumption to make. So maybe Dino just wanted a souvenir.
And that's probably what was going through their heads too of maybe Palisa doesn't work with us, so why put my neck out for her and play something for her if she's going to like flip on us later? But going into the merge, I can see it being bad for Dino, Phil, Tatian, and Tony because they really needed to get a Breakfast Club person, at least one out. If they got the Meryl or Shane vote here where one of them went home, that would have been really good. But I see going into the merge, I can see the Breakfast Club Alliance having majority where they would have Marion, Steffi, Meryl, Dante, Shane, and Steffi brings in Killarney and Dante maybe brings in Felix. I would say Felix is in the middle. He could pick Dante and Meryl, or he could pick the BS Alliance. And then I feel like the people on the bottom would be Tony, Tajan, Dino, and Phil, where the majority, like usual, you would probably vote out two of the people on the bottom, and then you would split the majority, and then you would use the remaining bottom people to go forward and vote out people in your own alliance.
Yeah, I feel like there might be a shakeup once the merge comes. Like maybe someone does something stupid and betrays their alliance, and then shit gets crazy. But I think if there's no major shakeup, it'll happen like you said it did. So
it'll be interesting to see next week. Nico announces the merge. They get their yellow buffs. And I want to know, does being voted out pre-merge hurt them coming into this returnee season? Does this lack of experience hurt these players? Because there's 11 people left going into the merge next week. 4 pre-merge people are going into the merge. They lost 6 of 10 people pre-merge. 7 merge people are going into the merge. Oling lost 3. So I do want to know, is being pre-merge hurting them? Because come into the swap tribe, you didn't necessarily have to vote out pre-merge people in certain configurations. So it seems bad that 4 pre-merge people and 7 post-merge people are going into the merge.
yeah, it does seem bad. I guess we'll see though. I'm excited to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, I want to know from the players. Like, was it the lack of experience of playing with these people who are more experienced, they haven't experienced the merge or that elevated gameplay, because some people have only been to like 1 or 2 tribal councils. But it also sucks that only 4 pre-merge people are making it to the merge this time, where 6 pre-merge people are also not making it to the merge again on their second time out.
Yeah, but I think that's part of keeping all of the pre-merge people together means that if the pre-merge team kept losing, then of course the pre-mergers were going to go home. I think it would have been interesting to see what it would have looked like if they had started out each tribe with 5 pre-merge and 5 post-merge and started mixed. And maybe that would have made it even worse for the pre-merge people, but who knows?
Yeah, interesting Survivor fantasies.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited for next week. You know, Monday's only 2 days away, so we don't really have to wait too long.
Yes, I'm really excited to see how this merge goes, just because I feel like there's so many different factions in play, and I think a lot of the people left are still really interesting game players, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So let us know all of your thoughts about this past week and what you think is going to happen now that it's merge time in the comments down below, and we will see you guys next week when we review week 4 of Survivor SA.